Hi, I'm Laine Craft. On behalf of New Hope Publishing and Iron Stream Media, we are bringing you some amazing interviews from some of their top authors that help us in these unprecedented times. We bring you hope and encouragement through the messages in each one of these amazing books. I know you'll want to join and you will want to share every one of these interviews. Thanks again. And we know that all things will work out for our good. God loves you. Enjoy the interview.
I know many of you are just so glad you tuned in today, and we're so glad Brenda joined us. There's so many things that we're all facing today. I mean, we're hopeless, we're scared, we're facing a world we've never seen, and some of us were teetering on depression and hopelessness anyway. And Brenda, tell us the name of this wonderful.
Tell us the name of the book?
Yes.
The book is 30 Days of Hope for Dealing with Depression. I'll see if I can show you the cover here.
Wonderful.
It's day by day, 30 days, so that there are short chapters, tidbits, and scriptures and insight to use when you're struggling with depression and want to get over it.
Well, you know what the value you bring to all of us today, Brenda, is this. You've lived it. You've lived being depressed and coming out on the other side. So today, could you just speak to the woman or the man that's listening in that has felt some fear that they've never experienced, or maybe this pandemic has put them over the edge and they are depressed and they can't pull themselves out? Can you tell us today, you lived it. How did you pull yourself out of depression?
It's not easy. Depression is really a hard enemy to deal with. And it took several things for me to get over being depressed. And that's one reason why there's a 30 days here, is that each chapter can deal with a particular phase of it. We need help from others. We need help from God. We need help sometimes from mental health professionals or medical professionals. The good news is that there are many ways to deal with depression, many ways to get over it. So while depression is a condition of hopelessness, there is also the hope that there's much help available. And that's part of my role in life. I consider myself a spiritual professional, spiritual health professional, not a mental health professional, because hope is a part of the human spirit, a very important part of the human spirit. And I want to help people to raise their hope level.
So give us a picture for us today, Brenda. What did depression look like for you? What did it feel like? What did it look like? So maybe some of the people today can identify.
Well, for me, I didn't want to get up in the morning. I'm a morning person by nature. I didn't realize that I was becoming depressed. I often use the word depressing when something would go wrong or I'd have a lot of car trouble. I'd say, oh, that's so depressing. But I didn't know that there was a particular condition called depression. And so when I started developing some of the symptoms, I had no idea what was causing it. But my husband and I both recognized something was wrong whenever I didn't want to get up in the morning. Like I said, I'm a morning person. The best time of day is the morning. And so when I just wanted to stay in bed and not get up and take care of my children, not to get on with the day, we both knew that something was wrong.
Do you think?
So I think when you see it, pardon?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think it was chemical or was it a life situation for you?
Oh my goodness, it was a life situation. My husband went through a lot of job difficulties, losing jobs close together. And when you lose jobs, as many people are experiencing now during the pandemic, then you also have financial difficulties. And so that added to the stress of all of it. Interestingly, my husband did not become depressed, but I became depressed. Even though they were his jobs that were being lost, I felt all of the weight. And what's worse, what was happening was that I concluded that God did not have a purpose for our lives. The incidents that happened in our lives were so bizarre, they didn't make sense. And because it didn't make sense, I interpreted it as God's not having a purpose for our life. And if there's not a purpose, for me, there was no point in getting up. And that's when we knew that I was depressed. But that was the main thing that caused it for me, was losing that sense of purpose, that your life counts.
And did you feel like God had forgotten you in this time? Or did you feel like nobody understood or cared?
Well, I have to say this, more people might have understood if I'd been willing to talk about it. But I prided myself on being a strong person. And so it was hard to admit to somebody else that you're in a vulnerable position like this and that you are depressed. And the few times I did try to talk about it, people would react to, of course God has a purpose for your life. And that would just shut me up. And so I just kept it to myself. I did have one friend, though, who recognized what was happening, and she recognized that it was depression. And so she would call me frequently, even though I wouldn't talk to her about what was happening, but to check in with me, to see if I was okay, to help distract my thoughts for the day. And I'll always be grateful to her for being there for me.
Well, that brings me to two questions. And one is, I'll do this one first. What not to say to someone that is telling you, I'm depressed? Because we certainly, I think sometimes we have good intentions, but to build other people up. But I know personally, I've learned to just validate people's emotions without trying to justify them. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Whatever you do, don't say to a person who's depressed, oh, snap out of it.
Mm.
Pick yourself up.
Mm.
It's all in your head. Do exactly what you say. Validate your feelings. Like when I would say, God doesn't have a purpose for my life, the better response would be, well, tell me about that. And why have you come to feel this way, Brenda? Let's talk about that a little bit. Instead of just saying, oh, God has a purpose for your life. That would just shut me down. And that's what we don't want to do. If a depressed person can talk, that is just one of the most helpful things that they can do. If they can talk out their feelings, get them outside of themselves, that's very healing, very helpful.
Yes, and Brenda, that was the second part of my question, because I know there are, I believe, 26 million people, close to that have lost their jobs in the last 6 weeks. I know that many people, I think it's 33% of people in America have missed a rent payment. So they're on the edge. And if you are already battling depression, you know that they're deep within it. I hear what you're saying. We must share this with somebody. I believe that's a main point today, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Who are those people in your life that would listen? Who are those people in your life who may be struggling just like you are? And maybe this is the time to form a small group of other people who are in your situation. I tell you, there's power in meeting together as a small group to talk about your fears. And I think in the current situation that we're in, there's so much grief that goes with it. There are people who are grieving the loss of their job, grieving those who have lost people, who have died, grief over just that life has changed, that life isn't what it used to be. I think that is really a hard adjustment for many people. And so if you can gather, and you may have to do it in Zoom, to do that, since we aren't allowed to gather in very large groups, but still that there are ways that you can talk and you can share what you're feeling, and get these emotions out. And another thing you can do, particularly if there's nobody you can feel like you can share that with, is to be honest with God. If you can't talk about these feelings to someone else, that you can share your emotions with God. I call it honest praying. And I talk about this in the book, 30 Days of Hope, that there were people in the Bible who became depressed. Moses was one of them, Elijah was one of them, Jonah was one of them. And they all three were honest with God about their emotions. You know, Moses and Elijah just go ahead and take my life. That's how miserable they were. And they said that to God. Now, when I was struggling with depression, I wasn't aware of these honest prayers of biblical characters who were depressed, but I was aware of Jesus's cry from the cross. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And that was one of the prayers that I had to pray to release all of that before I got over being depressed, because I did feel like that he had forsaken us, that our lives didn't make sense, and we had tried so hard to please him. And it was with honest praying, just crying, just letting it all out, just telling him exactly how I felt. Now, it took more than a one-time prayer, but each time that I prayed it and released those emotions, the emotions wound themselves down until I was free of that and I could get that out of my system. And then I could be prepared for going on with life, building a new life even. I came out of this whole thing a much stronger person.
Wow. And you know, Brenda, that speaks today too, because none of us are coming out of this the same. None of us are coming out of this pandemic the same. I love this honest praying, Brenda, because I think a lot of times religion has us hide from God when we are in shame or sin, or we feel like we've disappointed God. Man, this honest praying seems to be, that just hit me in my heart. Can you again maybe tell us, how can you show us today and demonstrate it to us what that prayer would be? Would it be just going, God, I don't know what to do. I'm so sad. Would you just unpack those emotions to God and pray?
If you can put a label to your emotions, that would be exactly the place to start. For some people, they can't label their emotions. Emotions are very hard to understand. I'm working on another book now on jealousy, envy, and coveting. And we all interpret emotions differently. And some of us haven't even bothered in life to give labels to some of the things that we feel. Just like when I was depressed, when I became depressed, I didn't know about an emotion of depression, a condition of depression. I had to learn a lot about that. And so you may have to start with just, God, I can't even put words to this. I just know that something's really wrong on the inside. And God, if you could help me identify that even. And I want to talk to you about it. I want to be honest. God, I really want to clean everything out on the inside. I really want a new start, but there just seems to be so much inside me that I can't get to that place. I can't see myself in a new way. God, would you help me? Just help me to recognize my emotions. And so it may just start with that. But whatever it is, whatever you can articulate, that you can feel like you can be honest with God. I think one of the most beautiful lines in the New Testament is, for God already knows what we need. He knows and he sees this, but he needs you to express that need to him so that he can come in and do a work of grace in your life, and he will.
Amen. I love that. Brenda, I am glancing, you were so wonderful in giving us 5 takeaways. We want to go over, can you just do me a favor? Do you have them in front of you? If not, I do.
Yes, I do, I think.
Okay, and if not, let me know, because I would love for you just to read just read them to us first, and then if we have time, we'll go back over them. If you are facing depression today and you feel hopeless, Brenda, who has lived this, who has walked through this, who has come to the other side, and in so much, she's written a book. These are 5 takeaways that you today can take into your heart and maybe implement immediately. So, Brenda, could you read those for us?
Yes. Do you want me to read them in the order that I gave them to you, or change the order?
No, just read them as they are.
All right. My first suggestion would be to give thought to what you can change and what you can't in the present situation that we're all finding ourselves. Stop wishing that this was over. We don't know yet what the outcome is going to be. But look at your particular situation and what you're having to handle as a result of this, or the people that you live with whatever's going on. What in this can I do something about? What can be changed and what can't be changed? And then let what you can't change go. And then think about what you can change and develop a plan. My second thing was, and this may have to do with my own personality, but I believe developing a structure for your life. And this is particularly for those people who are furloughed from their jobs or have lost their jobs through this, that I'll know what I'm going to do when I get up in the morning. If I have a structure, if I have a plan, and that's very helpful. That keeps you moving, that keeps you organized, that keeps some structure to your life. I often, when I speak to groups on depression, remind them that those who make their bed when they first get up in the morning are less likely to become depressed than those who don't. Because this is, start to my day and I've accomplished something, and you always have that made bed to look back on, that I got off to a good start. So right. to have a structure. The third thing is find emotional relief, which is what you and I have already talked about, is sharing with someone or being honest in your prayers with God so that you can get out all of the negative emotions, all the problem emotions, and then let God come in and do a work of grace in your life. And then I would also suggest becoming familiar with the symptoms of depression when we're talking about an actual condition, a mental health condition called depression. Is there a change in your appetite? Is there a change in your eating habits? Is there a change in your sexual desires? Do you feel tired and fatigued all the time? Do you feel hopeless, as if life will never be the same? And I think that question describes a lot of people right now, that life will never be the same. We can't go through all the symptoms here, but you can go online and you can find the symptoms, be familiar with those so that you will be able to judge your own progress and make sure you're staying away from becoming fully depressed. Take every thought captive. When we talk about emotions and feelings, those usually start with thoughts. The thought comes first. And sometimes we roll these things around in our head till they mushroom and grow large and cause dangerous feelings. I say dangerous in regard to depression. Just like saying, I can't wait till this is over. This is an awful situation. What is God doing in this situation? Like in my situation, I interpreted that God didn't have purpose for my life. See, and that caused me to become depressed. And then find something to be grateful for, many things to be grateful for. I just think gratitude is one of the most powerful things that we can do to change our attitude about life and to fight depression. Look in your situation. There's always something to be grateful for. Since I struggled with depression, I begin every day in my morning prayer, before I say anything else, to thank Him for at least 3 things. whatever situation that comes along in my life, I look for something there, that's distressing. I look for something there to be grateful for. And then the last takeaway that I sent you was, ask yourself, what can I do for others? To take the focus off of yourself and do something for others. There's always a sense of satisfaction that comes when you've made a difference in another person's situation. And I think there's just been so many examples on the news of people doing that, of helping somebody else. And so look around, your neighbors, people in your life that you see, and ask, what can I do for them? How can I make their situation better? How can I be helpful to them?
Wow.
And it will change you.
This is great, Brenda. Let me ask you this. We're running quite close to out of time. If there's someone out there that really thinks they're beyond picking themselves up, do you suggest a 1-800 number or somewhere that you would send them if they really felt like they cannot pull themselves out of this pit of depression?
I would say contact your local mental health organizations. There will be those wherever you live in your county, or if you're near a large city. And if you can't find those, even to call your doctor. Your doctor may not be able to give you the kind of help that you need emotionally, but they will have resources to recommend for you.
Yes, and listen, I want to just, if I want to end on this, and then we're going to get your contact info, but if you're listening today or viewing and you have any of these symptoms and you can't tell someone, you can't have honest praying, you can't do some of these things, there's no shame. There's no reason for you to feel like you're less than or weak. Listen, you're really strong. The person that says, I need help, is the strongest person. And we want you to know that. And listen, Brenda, tell us how to find you and get your book.
All right, you can get the book through New Hope Publishers, or you can find it on Amazon, or you can find it on my website, www.brendapoinsett.com.
And I tell you, Brenda, this is great. I will link this to the podcast and to the links that we need to get all these interviews out. And we just thank you for being so brave, and not just being brave, but for thinking of others when you got through this, that you shared this so that others could learn how to get over depression. And I love the way you put it in a format that I believe is doable, and we know God can do anything, and He loves you, and that we're never alone. And that honest praying, I'm going to be thinking about that all day, Brenda.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and we love you.
I was glad to help.